Hi guys, welcome to another video, and this one I wanted to do a bit of a day one update for my Bear SLAMS Titan build, which has been going pretty well. I'm currently at the end of the interludes. I'm at level 60 right now, and the build has been progressing pretty much as expected. There was a little bit of a hitch sort of towards the middle of Act 1 and then through to around the end of Act 2, where you kind of have this issue of you're trying to use Furious Slam, but the attack speed is just not really there, so you're kind of using it in the middle of enemies and basically you get stunned out of the animation. That was happening quite a lot. So one of the things that I'll recommend there if you're struggling with that problem in the early game is to kind of prioritize attack speed and skill speed as much as you can. So I'll show you on the passive tree here. This wheel right here is just really good to get early. I actually didn't have that in the build guide, but I've actually updated it now. So this thing, you should just grab this as soon as you come straight out of this pathing here with all of this damage. Make sure you go straight for the skill speed because this is really, really valuable early on. And then, of course, make sure that you're using rapid attacks in your skill gem for Furious Slam because Furious Slam is quite slow and rapid attacks is going to make it so you're able to get that off quicker. Obviously, in the early game, this is going to be rapid attacks 1, but prioritize keeping your attack speed as high as possible. So, you know, as soon as you can get access to rapid attacks 2, make sure you use that as well. And that will make the build feel much better, especially in those early phases where you're using Maul to, you know, generate your rage, and then you're using Furious Slam for most of your damage. Now, as you kind of progress a little bit, the combo of what you start to use for clearing and bossing starts to change up a little bit. So I ditched Maul, I want to say it was around the end of Act 2, I think, is where I fully ditched Maul, and then I moved on to using Fury of the Mountain. So Fury of the Mountain is a skill, it's actually a channeling skill, it creates these molten fissures on the ground. But if you just kind of tap it quickly, it will create one set of fissures, and it's actually very fast. I've got it linked to rapid attacks. It's very fast to actually create those fissures, and that's basically how I've been, you know, using this skill, is to just quickly generate fissures, and that's most of the rage gain here. It already gains 3 rage on hit, then it gains another 5 from the support gem, and the main combo there, when you're kind of moving through map areas and clearing, becomes using Pounce. So Pounce is a wolf skill, it kind of turns you into a wolf and it does a bit of a pounce towards the target. It's quite a good gap closer, and this one is really nice because it has Predator's Mark built in, which is a bit more increased damage. But what I've done here is I'm actually using Rage 2, so that also generates Rage, and on top of that we're using Crater. And Crater is a support gem that makes it so that this skill upon landing will create 3 fissures that kind of all go out from each other, from the center. So that is really nice because what happens is this fissure right here remains on the ground for a duration, and anytime we use any other slam skill on top of that, it's going to generate all of this rage again. So every time a slam goes on top of this, it's going to proc the aftershock of those fissures, then they're going to continue to generate rage, which is basically the same principle of Fury of the Mountain, but when it comes to actually clearing monsters, Pounce is just better for doing that because, you know, you're constantly jumping between packs and you deal quite a lot of damage with this on the actual initial slam that comes out. And then after Pounce, you pretty much follow up with Furious Slam, and you can kind of weave some of those molten fissures in from Fury of the Mountain, because that skill, as I said, is quite quick to use, and you can occasionally drop your totem if you're having troubles killing a rare or something like that. The totem is actually the MVP of this build, the Shockwave totem, because this is the thing that kind of procs all of your rage gain during bossing. So for bossing, the kind of rotation is very similar, except for you're going to have a bit more focus on stacking up as many of these fissures as you can underneath the boss. So you're going to use Pounce once again to, you know, create those first 3 fissures, and you're going to also get the Predator's Mark on there, which allows us to break the armor of the target. That's really nice because we're also using a passive skill over here, which makes it so that broken armor also affects fire damage that we deal, and we're dealing basically physical and fire. At the moment, I also have some other elemental coming in from my weapon, I think, but, you know, mostly we're going to be focusing on a high physical damage weapon, so it's going to be all pure physical and fire. So the Pounce will mark up the target, and then you can kind of drop some fissures underneath them using Fury of the Mountain, and once you've actually got those fissures set up underneath the boss, you're dropping a totem on, and that translates into us being able to spam Furious Slam. So Furious Slam as a baseline, it's going to consume 10 rage to enrage the slam. That'll make it deal a lot more damage. Actually, you can see on this level 16 gem here, it's 197 damage baseline. This attack hits twice, so that's almost 400% as a baseline there. But in the enraged form, you can see how much damage this does. 309%, so just over 600%. It's a big damage increase, you know, a bit more than 50% damage increase there. And this skill, you basically can't spam this unless you have good rage generation, because every time you use it, it's going to attempt to spend 10 rage, and obviously rage translates to damage in and of itself because it's a more damage multiplier. And I'm also using Rage Forge there, which spends another 10 rage on top, so this is spending 20 rage every time, and that will also cause it to deal 35% more damage, but there is a chance there that you can actually use the slam without spending any rage at all. That's why this support is so good on Furious Slam, is because 1 in every 3 times we use this skill on average, it's going to cost no rage out of 20, and that's how we're able to keep our rage up in boss fights. And with enough fissures there under the boss, you can basically get this huge kind of damage output going with the slams repeating over and over again, especially when they're empowered by Infernal Cry, which is adding a lot of extra damage on top. And I will just quickly go over all of my gems in detail here, just to show you exactly what I'm doing. So I have Furious Slam. This is currently a 5 link. I have rapid attacks there, so it gets out faster. Fist of War, which is a nice boost. It's an area effects boost and a more damage boost, but it only applies once every 4 seconds. This support is likely to be replaced in the end game when we have kind of, you know, a higher amount of attack speed and things like that, because I don't think it's going to be quite as effective, but right now it's a pretty nice support. Then we have Aftershock there, which is a 35% chance for the attack to repeat, essentially, and then deal all of its damage again. So this is a very good damage support. And lastly, we have that Rage Forge that I just discussed. Then we have Pounce with Rage, Mark for Death, and Crater. Already discussed that. And we have Shockwave Totem with Urgent Totems, so the totem gets spawned faster. Then we have Rapid Attacks. This should be Rapid Attacks too, but I've run out of support gem upgrade. Then we have our Savage Fury buff, which is basically this really nice damage boost buff. It grants you more damage and it grants you Onslaught, which is a nice speed boost. And it's not there very often, you know, this is going to be a thing that you kind of save and then you use it on a boss, but it is very noticeable when you use it just how much damage this is giving you. And that's with prolonged duration, so it lasts a bit longer. And this is with Vitality and Precision right now for a bit of extra life regen and accuracy. Then we have Infernal Cry linked with Tireless there, so we have a bit of a chance there for the empowerment to actually not be counted, so we get another one after that. And Raging Cry there for even more rage generation. And there's Fury of the Mountain with Rage, Rapid Attacks, Upheaval, which allows this to create additional fissures, so it basically covers more area of effect. And then Elemental Armament, because most of the damage dealt by this is fire damage. And lastly, I'll just discuss, because I have Walking Calamity here, but it doesn't have any support gems. I have been testing out this skill a little bit. I've moved some support gems back into the other links, because this skill is actually really good, Walking Calamity. From the experience that I've had of it, it's really good. However, I would say, if you want to play a build around Walking Calamity, you should probably play Shaman on the Druid, because that has a bunch of rage generation kind of all the time, right? And you don't have to like rely on rage gain on hit or anything like that. That's where this skill really shines, because it means you can have it up very, very often. This is not really a thing that I think I'm going to incorporate into this build too much. I will be testing out a little bit more. And the other skill that I'm going to test around is Rampage, which is something that I haven't really played around with at all just yet. So that's another thing that I want to kind of, you know, test and see how it feels like in this build. But again, those are things that I'm going to have to kind of play around with, see what support gems work, see if it actually fits into the build. And I'll do a bit of that in the next couple of days. Now let's quickly go over the passive tree. So there isn't too many changes here from the Mobalytics passive tree that I updated yesterday. And if you didn't see it from the last video, I updated the tree to basically be a bit more reliable, because we didn't really know what nodes were going to be up here. There are some very good nodes up here, but I actually really like this pathing going down here, because we get a lot of skill speed here, we get the armor break that affects fire damage here. We also get to use our weapon set passives to grab these nodes here for Warcry, so this is really nice. And over here, we're about to take these 2 wheels here, which are very, very good for movement speed and kind of making us a lot faster to traverse around the map. And then later on in the build, we can kind of fill out some of the armor nodes here, which makes this pathing a lot better, because right now it's kind of a lot of pathing to get these more valuable nodes here, but the armor nodes are going to be really valuable because we're going to start to invest into armor scaling and armor applying to elemental damage. And I'll also mention, while I'm here, of course, this is the wheel that was kind of added into the build. I've added it on Mobalytics, and this wheel is just insane. Obviously, I already have Hulking Form right now, which means this is getting boosted up a tiny bit, so there's an extra 1 max rage on these two. But this right here is 4 points in this wheel. We were already pathing up here, and this is 4 maximum rage while shapeshifted on the 2 small nodes, and 12 on the big node, for a total of 20 on this build. 20 maximum rage from 4 points. That is absolutely ridiculous, so that's a really, really good wheel there to grab on this build. And the last thing I want to discuss in this video is this node right here, Mountain Splitter, because it turns out that I was right. It actually is 3 aftershocks on each side for a total of 9 aftershocks. I haven't actually used the skill yet, but it's been confirmed by other people who have tested it in standard with their Titan characters, and yeah, this is going to be absolutely ridiculous on this build. This is basically the end game of the build. Right now, it might be a bit slower and feel a little bit more sluggish compared to the builds that are running Walking Calamity, but the end game of this build is going to be focusing on Mountain Splitter with the Slam, and that's going to be where the real single target damage is going to come in, because if there's any way to be able to overlap those 9 aftershocks, that is pretty much going to be one-shotting bosses if you get to the stage where you have a really good weapon, you have a very good setup. So I'm super excited to progress with this build and get this node and start to test it out. And let's quickly go over the gear that I have right now, the most important thing there being the weapon. And you kind of want to focus on getting as much damage as possible for leveling. It doesn't really matter which damage type you get. Obviously, the focus there is on physical damage because that is kind of what we're scaling the most in this build, and fire damage as well. But, you know, even if you get some bonus lightning damage on there or things like that, it's still going to be pretty useful. So front load the damage, then you're looking for attack speed and gem levels. Gem levels there being extremely important as a damage boost. This one only has +2 to the level of melee skills, but, you know, it could be better, but it's still pretty good right now for where I am. And the rest of the stuff is just basic life and resistance gear. You know, any attributes that you need solving is also good on your gear at this stage, but yeah, this is pretty mediocre gear. I haven't actually used the trade site at all yet. This is all stuff that I've found or I've gambled or something like that. I do recommend saving up your gold to be able to gamble for a weapon, especially sort of towards the end of Act 4 or in the middle of Act 4. Make sure you have gold built up so that you can then spend it on actually gambling for a weapon. I am currently almost res capped on everything here. You see 75, 75, 74. No chaos resistance at the moment, which is actually one of the biggest issues I've been having. Every time I come up against a chaos damage monster, it just deals ridiculous amounts of damage to me. So I am actually using these 2 charms. Again, I found both of these. This is a chaos damage charm here, so that when I actually take chaos damage, I get a little bit of chaos resistance. This is not much. It's only 18%. And then this for poison, because, you know, you come up against those monsters that kind of like needle you with lots of poisons in a row, and you suddenly start degenning like crazy. So this is really nice. But overall, nothing too important on the gear. It's just life resistance gear. The most important thing is getting a good weapon. But that is pretty much it for this video. You can head over to the guide on Mobalytics. I've updated it there with the gems that I'm currently using and the pathing that I'm using and any kind of updates to the priority of nodes and things like that. As I said, if you're struggling a little bit in the early game, make sure you prioritize skill speed. I can't stress enough how good this is. So make sure you grab as much skill and attack speed as you can. And prioritize a fast weapon. You know, if you have a weapon that's slightly less damage, but it's faster, it will feel a lot better to play. You'll be able to actually move around in combat and, you know, get the damage out. So I definitely recommend focusing on that. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys are enjoying the 0.4 League launch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.